Hello and welcome to the Salty Scout Food and Travel Podcast. I'm Jane and I live, travel and cook aboard a 45-foot sailboat named Scout with my husband James. I'm looking forward to sharing the delicious food and drink experiences that make each sailing destination unique. Since setting sail from the US East Coast in 2022, I've been on a culinary adventure with a loose plan and a passion to explore and taste my way through the world's local cuisines. Whether you're an avid adventurer, fellow sailor, armchair traveller or food enthusiast, join me on this journey as I discover local foods, drinks, recipes, cooking techniques and restaurants as diverse as the places we visit. Hello and welcome back to my third episode of Salty Scout. While we're now in Panama, I'm reflecting back on our time in Colombia, specifically Cartagena. And what I thought I'd talk about today is the drinks within Colombia, non-alcoholic drinks as well as the alcoholic ones, of which there is a fair amount of choice. Obviously not including coffee because I've done that already. It's in a previous episode. So if you are interested in finding out about Colombian coffee, that would be my first ever episode of Salty Scout. Cartagena is certainly a great destination to go for trying out artistic, unusual flavoured cocktails, as well as a Medellin in Antioquia. And I'll talk a bit more about some recommendations for cocktail bars in both Cartagena and in Medellin. From a scout sailing point of view, what we are preparing for now is ahead of our passage to Panama. We're making sure that we've got lots of provisioning in place, specifically for drinks, such as some tonic water and mixers as well. We have our water maker on board, which is great for providing, obviously, drinking water, but we also like to have canned drinks as well. We have a freezer. The freezer is great because obviously not only can we freeze some foods, but also we've got the ice box as well, which is amazing. It's always good to have ice whenever we need it. So that's a real luxury because freezers on boats is actually quite a recent addition. Many boats, certainly just even 15 years ago, did not possess a freezer. As you can imagine, all these cans of drinks, sodas and so on, they take up a lot of space. So what a lot of cruisers do, a lot of sailors do, they have a soda stream, which is great, very useful. You have obviously the syrup and you've got those cartridges and you just squeeze away. The only thing I find with that is it's hard to track down those cartridges once you're out of the US. So that's the only downside. Plus, I kind of think that there's one thing you can get in most corner shops, tiendas, whatever, and that's soda. Whether it's Coca-Cola, lemonade, whatever. I have noticed in my travels around the world that that's the one thing that you can get hold of. So we decided to just go easy on the number of cans because we knew that in all likelihood we'd be able to pick those up. I should also add that when it comes to drinking water on a boat, it's really important to drink as much as you can. So I think we're talking about maybe about half a gallon of water should be consumed per person per day. That's maybe about 2 litres, whether it's water or maybe fruit teas, so long as you're staying hydrated. That's the main thing, especially when in more tropical areas like where Scout is right now. And of course we can do that because we've got this water maker. And yes, the water maker we have is quite industrial, obviously we're using reverse osmosis. And we generally make about 30 gallons an hour. So it's quite high output, but I am very grateful for our water maker. The one we have is called an Ecotech, and it's the 2-membrane version. And we use that water obviously not just for drinking, but also washing and cleaning and so on. And with all water makers, you also need to flush out the membranes afterwards, which actually uses up some of the water that you've just made. So that's the downside to it, but you probably end up with about 90% of what you made. But yes, very useful. So that was my bit about the sailing aspect to Scout for today and in relation to drinks. The first Colombian non-alcoholic drink I'd like to talk about is the agua panela. So the agua panela is a very popular drink within Colombia. It literally translates to panela water, and it's essentially a solid form of sucrose, sugarcane, that's derived from boiling and evaporating of the sugarcane juice, and then it's poured into mold. It's commonly found throughout South America, but also in a few parts of Central America and the Caribbean as well. And indeed, some Colombians actually think it's a bit of an immune booster, where the combination of the vitamins and the minerals in the panela can help strengthen the immune system. I can certainly see that it might be a good rehydrating solution like Gatorade. When it comes to the actual agua panela drink, you just take chunks of this panela and you dissolve it in the water to create this drink, and you can add a little bit of lime or lemon to it as well. It can also be served hot or cold, and many Colombians, when they have their black coffee, and instead of adding just water and sugar, they add agua panela. So yes, I've tried it many times, and every time I found it really refreshing, and it can be found in most cafes and restaurants, so easy to find. The next drink I want to talk about is a limonada or lemonade. In its simple form, it's just limes or lemons, crushed ice, and sugar that's been blended together. But they also provide two other variations on the limonada. The first one is limonada de coco, which is essentially coconut cream, crushed ice, some limes, and sugar, and blending it all together to create this really flavorful, creamy infusion of the lime and the coconut. Very tasty. And the other one is mint lemonade. We had some incredibly tasty mint lemonades in Cartagena. It's a really bright green concoction with the mint added, the lime, the crushed ice, and the sugar. There was this really amazing brunch destination we went to called Pascal's, which is basically between Gethsemane and the Old Town. And they create this amazing mint lemonade concoction. The next non-alcoholic drink I want to talk about is one called Cola Roman, and it's kind of unique to Colombia and was invented back in 1865, I think, in the city of Cartagena by a Don Carlos Roman. And it's considered a traditional Colombian soft drink. These days it got reinvented back in the 1960s, and it has an intense red color and quite a sweet vanilla flavor. Many Colombians actually use Cola Roman in food preparation. In particular, there's a dish that I was able to cook with Lunatico cookery classes in Cartagena, and the dish was called Platanos en Tentación, which basically means plantains in temptation sauce. And yes, the temptation sauce includes the soda. So this bright pink Cola Roman soda is added to these sliced plantains that are happily bubbling away in butter and cinnamon and some water, and the sauce gets reduced so it's nice and syrupy. So really, really tasty, very sweet and very pink. So if you're able to try that out, yes, I would recommend. It's called the Plantains in Temptation sauce. Now that I've spoken about the non-alcoholic drinks in Colombia, such as the agua panela, the limonada, and the Cola Roman, I now want to talk about the alcoholic drinks. And the first is the national liquor of Colombia, and it is called aguardiente. And aguardiente, or guaro as it's called, is a distilled beverage made from sugarcane and anise, and it basically translates into English as fire water. So aguardiente. It is also found in other Latin American countries and usually drunk cold and neat in small glasses, so like a shot. And it is considered the best-selling liquor in Colombia. It's basically the same as ouzo is in Greece, the more alcoholic pastis that exists in France, and the sambuca in Italy. It's only about 29% alcohol though. The most popular and traditional brand of aguardiente is called Antioquino Tapa Roja, which is red cap, and is considered the world's top-selling aguardiente. There are a couple of cocktails I'd like to recommend that use the aguardiente liquor. The first one is the aguardiente sour cocktail. It's a traditional Colombian cocktail made from orange juice, sugar, egg whites, lime juice, and of course aguardiente. So I found this one really refreshing after a very hot day. Have a glass of this with the orange juice. It was nice and zesty. It was quite sweet, but the acidity of the orange juice cut through that, which was nice. And the other drink is a cocktail called canelazo, which is a popular Colombian drink that is drunk typically after a meal at the end of the day. It can be drunk either hot or cold, and it includes the agua panela, which I spoke about earlier. That and the cinnamon and the aguardiente, as well as a little bit of lime juice as well. I had mine hot and made for an alternative dessert. It was really sweet but also really tasty. The next alcoholic drink I want to talk about is a drink called viche, spelt V-I-C-H-E. And it's a home-brewed alcoholic drink that's made, again, from sugarcane, and it's very popular on Colombia's Pacific coast. Back in 2021, Colombia decided to pass a law declaring the beverage a part of the country's cultural and ancestral heritage, which is great. And this allowed for more commercial production of their viche. Viche is you take the sugarcane and you squeeze the juice to make this guarapo, which is then fermented and then distilled into viche. And the sugar cane and the herbs that are added to it are grown using environmentally friendly multiple cropping methods. Viche has been used in traditional communities, specifically Afro-Colombian communities, for many centuries, and is considered to be a ceremonial intoxicant and for medicinal purposes, notably to purge stomach bugs and parasites, and also to act as an aphrodisiac. Viche contains about 35% alcohol, kind of typical for that type of liquor, and can be consumed on its own, but it is also often mixed with sugary fruit juices as well. And I remember trying one, and it was a really nice combination of flavors. And now, as it's gaining legality and respectability outside of that Pacific Coast region, more and more people are starting to drink viche in bars and also making it more available to purchase as a bottle. So I can't do a podcast about alcoholic drinks in Colombia without talking about wine. And yes, there is a wine that is produced in Colombia, and it's called Corozo Pegaso sparkling wine. Yes, it's a sparkling rosé wine. The only unsurprising difference is it's not made from grapes like typical wine is. This one is actually made from a fruit called corozo. And the corozo is a fruit grown on palm trees in the Caribbean area, and it's a small round reddish purpley type fruit from the palm tree that grows in the area of Bolivar and Cordoba. And this semi-dry, naturally fermented sparkling wine goes back about 500 years, maybe not as sparkling but as a wine, when the tribes fermented the corozo for consumption. This particular version has small bubbles. It's quite low in alcohol, about 10%. It's got some acidity, the corozo flavors, as well as blueberries and strawberries on the nose and palate. What I really liked about the bottle that I tried was it had a tasting note, and it said, "Good for breakfast, brunch, beach days, and beautiful sunsets." So what more could you want? I think that pretty much covers everything. So yes, if you're ever able to get hold of a bottle of Corozo Pegaso sparkling wine that's made by the Maranta Brewery here in Colombia, do try it out. It's certainly very refreshing. And yeah, I'd say it's good for sunsets. Before I wrap up this episode by talking about some cocktail bar recommendations, I also want to talk about a cookery class I went to at Lunatico cookery classes in Cartagena. And the chef, Daniel, he wanted to explain to us how to say cheers or a toast in Spanish. And I should add, at the time when he did it, we were experiencing a power cut. So it was very atmospheric. There were candles everywhere and a few flashlights. So I videoed him explaining to us how to say cheers and do a toast in Spanish as he was drinking his shot glass of aguardiente, by the way. You'll hear what happens next.
But I'm having fun, so that's fine. Yeah, it's necessary, exactly.
Right, so you do that. Well, how do you toast it?
So we say arriba, abajo, al centro, y pa dentro.
So thank you to Daniel for explaining to me what the salutation is in Spanish. Pa arriba, pa abajo, pa centro, pa dentro, which basically means up, down, to the center, and in. And of course, although you can't hear it in the audio, but what happened was after he made the salutation, the lights came back on again. So who could have planned for that? So he was definitely the bearer of light. Anyway, thank you, yes, Daniel, for that. Arriba, abajo, centro, dentro. If you'd like to see it, I do have the video version on my Salty Scout Instagram. So I'd like to wrap up this episode on drinks in Colombia by talking about cocktail bars and making some recommendations throughout Colombia. But before I do, I want to emphasize that one thing I noticed about being in Colombia for these months, the amount of effort that the Colombian mixologists go to creating these incredible works of art is really quite mind-blowing. Not just from the flavors and the different experimental ingredients, but also for the ice, the glassware, the garnishes, everything, the colors. Everything has been thought about to create this real collective piece of art that is really, really quite impressive. So I'll start by recommending Restaurant Kuon, which is an Asian fusion restaurant in Medellin. But they also have a very good bar that does some fantastic cocktails, again, very artistic. And then back in Cartagena, I recommend the Mirador Gastro Bar because of its location. It's got this wonderful rooftop bar, which is great for catching the breeze on a balmy evening, looking down over the plaza. And they've got a good selection of cocktails there. The next one is Casa Pura, which is around the other side facing the Caribbean Sea in the old town. That is also a rooftop bar. I remember they did quite traditional cocktails, but they were done really well. The next cocktail bar, which comes highly recommended, is Alchemico. Has like 3 or 4 different floors that cater to different types of cocktails. It's a mixologist's dream, I think, to be able to be working there, I'm sure. So I remember trying a viche cocktail at Alchemico, and that was really, really tasty. And finally, I want to recommend Dona Lola. Now, Dona Lola is a great restaurant, really good food, but the cocktails are really very impressive. If you just go there for one thing, it would be a cocktail. And they really take the time to make it a whole immersive experience. So that's Dona Lola in Gethsemane. So if you make it over there, then yeah, do check out Dona Lola. Well, thanks for coming on board, Scout, and listening to me talk about drinks in Colombia. It's been wonderful to be able to reflect on those days and those drinks that I had. And I hope you found this information useful, whether it's just now you know about agua panela or an aguardiente, or now you know there's a great cocktail bar in Gethsemane. In real time, though, here I am. It's just getting dark. There's just been this beautiful sunset as I look over my shoulder here. Outside of Scout. We're in a quiet anchorage in Panama, specifically now in Bocas del Toro, very beautiful part of the world. But I'll get to tell you about this amazing place another time, another episode, another podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. Take care. Bye-bye.